Hello, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History, where we're solving the mystery of August 16th, 1977. This episode, Worn in Service to the King. And if you've been with us for previous episodes, you know that we're following our fictional Elvis fan Joyce, who lives in Memphis, in August 1977. She's been devastated by the news of Elvis's passing, and she's gathering all kinds of evidence from the television, from the radio, from newspapers, and from the Elvis fan network, who are showing up at her house, and they're bringing her different pictures as they all gather in their grief. It's August 18th, 1977. We've been through about a day and a half, almost 2 full days. All of Joyce's friends are going through some newspapers and looking at some pictures as they prepare to brave the August heat in order to try to catch a glimpse of the funeral procession, including the hearse, which will be bearing the king to the graveyard. But right now, they're still going through all those newspaper articles and those different pictures. So today, we're going to see some jackets. Now, you know that in the last episode, or the last couple of episodes, we saw a couple of jackets. But these jackets that we're going to see today, they're not just any jackets. These are going to be Elvis in concert jackets. Kind of like the one that you can see Vernon wearing with Elvis on the screen right now. Red, loud, attention-grabbing. These weren't just any jackets. They were ritual uniforms. But they're not mass-produced fan items. These were ritual vestments given only to those within the sacred perimeter of Elvis's final tours. Those within the circle. Those that Elvis wanted to show were special so that they could get backstage, or because they were working for him. These were the people, for the most part, who were taking care of business. Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And that's okay. I'm happy to give you a shout out, Terry. Everybody should take a look at Terry's channel, Elvis History. He put out a couple of good songs recently. He's also got some other good videos out there. Hi, chillin' in Canada. Good to see you. Appreciate seeing you here too. And I hope you guys find what I've got to show you today interesting. But before we get to these jackets, we've always got new people that are watching the program, new people that are coming in. And over the last many episodes, we've looked at some medical pieces of what's happened. Things like the prescriptions that Elvis was taking. We saw real bottles that had the prescription straight from Dr. Nicopolis right on there. We've heard Dr. Nicopolis and Dr. Francisco name specific medical issues. We've talked a little bit about what drugs he might have been taking for what issue, what they might have treated, how much pain he might have been in. But we really haven't taken a look at what are these specific medical issues. So we're going to start taking a look at them slowly. It's too much to try to absorb all in one episode. So over the course of many episodes, we're going to start to mix in a little bit of medical knowledge about what was going on with Elvis. Hi, Carolyn. Thank you for coming. Appreciate seeing you here today. So the first one that we're going to talk about is hypertension. So we see reported often in the newspaper that he had hypertension, or mild hypertension is the way they put it. So what is hypertension? Well, it's also known as high blood pressure. And I think a lot of people get treated for high blood pressure today. And it's a condition where the force of the blood against the walls of the arteries is consistently above normal levels. So your arteries are what is pumping the blood around your body. Your veins are what's bringing it back to your heart, but the arteries are pushing it all around based on the pumping action of your heart. So what this is saying is that for some reason, his heart was either pumping too hard or he had too much fluid within his arteries, and that caused this hypertension condition. Now we're going to take a look at a picture. I've got a couple of pictures. These are medical illustrations. So I hope that they don't gross anybody out. We're going to be taking a look at a few as we talk about these medical items, because I think it helps to visualize what's actually happening in Elvis's body. And these are illustrations. They're not photographs or anything like that. So I'm going to bring one up now so that we can take a look together. And you can see that there's a blood vessel, well, an artery. This is an artery, and it's a cutaway of an artery, so you can see inside. And the very pink edges, where there's red and blue dashes, that's the wall of the artery. That's what you would see if you cut somebody open and looked straight at it, would be that wall. But inside the wall is a muscle, and it looks pink here. And then there's like a channel or a hollow, a canal, and that's where the blood is being pumped. And you can see the blood platelets. It looks like little red discs. Well, those are supposed to be in some kind of fluid, like water. It's blood, but that's what's pumping around inside of you. And the purpose of this picture is to show that that channel can be very narrow. And what happens is the muscles on either side, they work like a bellows, and they pump back and forth. So they widen that channel and they shrink it. And that action causes the blood to flow along with the pumping of the heart. So as the blood flows around from that strong pumping, it's able to do that because if there's too much fluid in there, it can't constrict enough to get a good pump. And that's what the hypertension is. So we're going to take a look at the next picture. And we can see that the channel is much more open. So hopefully that shows up clearly for you guys. It's much more open. And that is trying to illustrate, and unfortunately this isn't a motion picture, so we just have to kind of imagine, but that's as far as it can constrict with the hypertension. So the blood is moving around a lot more sluggishly. And that's what high blood pressure and hypertension is. And he was taking something to control this. Now, today, according to my doctor, it's not uncommon for a person who takes a medication to control blood pressure to take 4 medications to control blood pressure. That they each have these side effects. And in order to keep any of the side effects from being too much from any one medication, they try to mix these medications together so that they don't give you too strong a dose to get to the effect they really want. So if they need to lower your blood pressure a lot, they might give you 3 or 4 different medications in order to get a cumulative effect, but so that none of the side effects will be too great. However, that means that you take a lot of pills. And, it's a lot, so you would think that you only take one to control this condition. But when Dr. Coppola says that he takes the medications to control his hypertension, I don't know back then if they were doing the same thing, but if they were following the same processes as today, he might have been taking several medications just for this one condition. And those are daily medications. And Carolyn is saying she's at the salon getting her hair done. And Terry's saying, in the world of Elvis, Carolyn hair today, gone tomorrow. And now we're going to move on from the world of the medical. And we're going to look at some Elvis in-concert jackets. Hi, Jen. Good to see you here. I appreciate it. So you can see on your screen now an Elvis concert jacket. And this one is to kind of get us acclimated into this world of Elvis in-concert jackets. These are the ones that he was using in 1977. I'm not an expert by any means in Elvis concert jackets or in anything else. I have no qualifications of any kind to speak about anything I'm talking about. And that's my daily disclaimer that everybody is allowed to have their own opinion and put it into my chats or into the comments, as long as they're not vulgar or profane or attack someone directly as a person. Mostly everything is fine. And I know that people come here with a lot of different places within the Elvis journey, including not understanding what was going on with his medical condition. And some are experts in minutia, like these jackets. So they would be able to talk circles around me about these jackets. But we're going to get a light look into these. And we're going to become somewhat familiar with them because he gave them to at least one very important person. So the one that we see on screen right now, you can see that it's got a big Elvis in concert patch on the front of it. And it's red. It's very loud. It's vibrant. And it's got white stripes around the waist, the collar, and the wrists. All of those portions, I believe, are made out of like an elasticy material. Perhaps not the collar, but definitely the waist and the wristbands. And there's one large pocket that you can see on the side, so there's presumably two, maybe one that's hidden by the other arm of the jacket. You know, who got these jackets? Well, like I said earlier, it was the people who were taking care of business. So this would have been obviously the inner circle who traveled with him, need to be backstage with him. And as we can see, Vernon's got one, so he would kind of fit into that category. Other people that would have this, perhaps the band, perhaps everyone in the orchestra. In fact, I know people in the orchestra got the jacket. People that were roadies. And we're going to see some evidence of that today. You know, so the people who got this weren't as rare as you might think that they were. My guess is they were ordering like 100 of these at a time, and they would do it like twice a year, or perhaps once a year. I think they were doing it twice a year because of the manufacturers. So this one that we see on screen is a summer jacket. And we're going to also see a winter jacket. Both are made by different manufacturers. And so I don't know exactly when they bought them or handed them out, but it would have been before each of those tours. And his tours would last a few weeks at a time. But there would be sets of them. So he would probably give this to you for the whole season. But the next year you'd get a new one because Elvis doesn't want to be represented by anybody wearing a tattered, perhaps dirty or old jacket. So how many of these are out in the world? Not really sure. But this one that we're looking at on screen, it hung in Mike Moon's Elvis Museum for over 30 years. And his museum was the Elvis and Hollywood Legends Museum in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which he boasted at one time held the largest privately owned Elvis Presley memorabilia collection in the world. However, we don't know who owned this jacket or exactly how Mike got it. So my guess on this one is that it was owned by somebody whose name we would not recognize as part of the Elvis story. Somebody that was in the orchestra. Somebody that was working on the lights. Somebody that was a roadie and carried things here or there. But wasn't a name that we've heard in any of the stories. So it didn't add to the story of the jacket, or at least it didn't seem to at the time. So it's not been recorded, and we don't know. When they sold this piece at auction, they did say it came with a piece of certificate of authenticity, but I believe that's a Mike Moon certificate of authenticity that says it was in his collection at his museum. I don't know that for sure, though, because I wasn't able to see that certificate. This jacket sold at auction in 2020 for $2,500. So that's a jacket that's connected to nobody except Elvis by a tenuous thread, but I believe people in the Elvis world that know the jackets do believe it's real. So that's about the price, 5 years ago, which I would think would be about the same today, of a jacket that has no story other than it's an Elvis jacket. $2,500. Now, here you can see the back of the jacket. And what's probably most significant to notice here is that there's nothing on it. There's no adornment. It's a plain back. Now you can see a TCB patch, but it's on the arm. We're going to take a closer look at that TCB patch, and you can see the lightning bolt. These people who wore this jacket were touched by the lightning, marked by the lightning of Elvis Presley, like the symbol for Captain Marvel, which was emblazoned on his chest, and which Elvis would have seen as a child when he loved the comic books. Here he's marked everyone in his Elvis army with a lightning bolt, and his personal motto, TCB. Now, this is another really important piece of the jacket. And that's this tag that says Holloway, one shell of a jacket. And this one says size large, an L for large, made in the USA, has some numbers. And it says care instructions are on the reverse side. So what's important about this tag is that this is the real people who made this jacket. It was Holloway. So jackets that don't have this tag, they're not real. Okay, now we're going to look at another jacket. But looking over into the chat, I can see that Terry's saying, Vernon looks so proud of his son with that great smile. He sure does, doesn't he? And Elvis looks pretty proud of him, too. Can't see it right this second because the jacket's covering him up, but we'll get another look at him before we get out of here today. But I thought this was a really special moment between them. And just shows that, the people who wore this jacket, each and every one of them meant something to Elvis. These weren't random people that had them. This was another sign of, if he was a king, this was his royal court. These were the people in his livery. Like if you went to see a king, the ones that would stand at the door and guard the way. And this is how they knew each other, as well as how the public knew them. And Anna's saying, you're right, Terry. Vernon looks proud. And hi, Anna. Thanks so much for coming today. And hi, Emma. Thank you so much for coming today. Appreciate seeing you here, too. But back to this jacket that's on the screen. You can see that there are some differences in this jacket from even the one that we can see Vernon wearing. One is the color of the patch is slightly different. Probably not that big a deal in the long run, along the scheme of things. Because when you take pictures like this, you can't really trust what the color comes out on the screen. There's just so many variables by the time you see the color on the screen. So we couldn't judge just by that. But we can see that there is a patch on the other side. And the last jacket we saw didn't have a patch. Doesn't mean a jacket couldn't have a patch. It also says TCB, and it's got a lightning bolt, and it's round, and got some stars. It looks like the lightning bolt's going into a circle design. Kind of looks like a NASA symbol, really, when I look at it, like a NASA patch from back in the day, which would have been this day. Like this was right at the end of the time that they had been running the Apollo missions. They were really popular a few years before this, and then had just kind of died away in the zeitgeist of the public, I believe. And Emma's saying she's always wanted one of those jackets. But maybe not this one. Because you can see that it says Ginger on it. So you would say, hey, this is Ginger's jacket. But if we look carefully at this jacket, you can see that because of the hanger, you can see all the way to the back of the jacket at the neck. And that's right where that label that I showed you a minute ago is supposed to be. And you can see there's no label there. And then this jacket is the same jacket. This is the back. And you can see it says Elvis. But as you saw in the last jacket, there is no embroidery on the back of an Elvis jacket. It's just plain. Doesn't mean there couldn't be embroidery, but typically there's no embroidery. They weren't bought that way. And this says that it's being sold on eBay by somebody named Sky Blue 5. And this was on July 27th, 2025. So it wasn't very long ago. Just a couple of months ago. Less than a couple of months ago. And it says Elvis Presley Ginger Alden Tour Jacket 1977. He's willing to sell it for only $750, which is a bargain compared to $2,500, or at least that's the bid he wants to start with. But that's a bargain compared to the $2,500 we saw for the jacket, which had no story to go with it. This is Ginger's jacket. Um, but you can also see that it had 0 bids and it's ended because it didn't sell because it's not real. Hopefully, everybody who saw it understood this is not a real jacket. This is some forgery jacket. I don't know if Sky Blue understands that. Maybe they actually believe it's real, but this jacket absolutely is not real. And even an amateur like myself can see that plainly in these 2 pictures that they posted of it online. But now let's take a look at this jacket. And this is another red Elvis in concert jacket. It's got the patch that says Elvis in concert. It's got the white stripes on the collar and the waist and the wristbands. It appears to be the same as the one that Vernon has on, really. Can't really, in this picture, see any difference. This is Ginger's summer jacket. So what we saw before was purported to be Ginger's summer jacket, but this is the real thing. And it was unworn. Elvis gave Ginger this jacket so that she could wear it in the upcoming tour, the one they were just about to go on, the one he was leaving for that day, and that she would most likely join him in a few days. This was going to be the jacket that she would wear. But she never wore it because that tour never happened. So when she sold it or put it up for sale in 2004, it was just like new. It's 100% nylon with white and red striped ribbing on the cuffs, waistband, and collar. It's got the 2 front slip pockets like we saw in Vernon's jacket when we looked at it a second ago, along with that front zippered closure. Ginger's jacket is a men's size small. Now, the jacket that was offered on eBay was purported to be in a female size. So that's another way that people could have known that that was not really Ginger's jacket. Because her jacket is in a men's size. It's a small. And Ginger's name is written in ink on the inside label. So that Holloway label that I showed you, we don't have a picture of this jacket's label. But on the Holloway jacket label that I showed you, you can imagine in ink Ginger's name written on it. And that's how they're identifying this jacket as Ginger's, as well as it came directly from Ginger. So that helped in this particular auction to identify, who this came from. There's a black, red, and white Elvis in concert patch sewn onto the left front. So when I said earlier that it's hard to see the color, but we could see that Elvis in concert on the fake jacket was blue, not black. So we could have imagined that the blue deepened into a black on these pictures that we were looking at Vernon. But now we know it is black, it's not blue. And that this one also has the TCB logo patch with the lightning bolt sewn onto the left arm sleeve. So with this gift, Elvis had brought her under the protection of the show. She was part of his retinue. She'd be traveling with him, as he took the royal court on the road. then the jacket also came with a letter of authenticity, signed and dated by Ginger Alden. And then in 2005, same jacket came up for auction. Here we get another picture of it. So this is the exact same jacket, just a slightly different angle on a different mannequin. And again, you can see that it's probably never been worn. It really has, like, it's brand new. I don't know if it hung in her closet or she kept it in a garment box all these years, but she certainly kept it in exquisite condition. And it sold at this auction in 2005 for $1,720. So that seems like less than that $2,500 that the other one sold for. But that was only 5 years ago, so there was some inflation in there. It seems fairly kind of the same, except that hers had a much better story attached to it. However, hers was, well, I guess they were both before the movie. And the intense interest in Elvis stuff. So I would think both these jackets would go for a lot more today, but I have no way to know. Not an auction expert, so if I was, I'd be able to buy up some of this stuff and maybe retire, but and so the other thing we should think about with these jackets, this jacket that belonged to Ginger, we're going to talk about another jacket, but we don't have a picture of it, but we do have a picture of one like it. So we're going to get an idea of what it looked like, but Elvis gave her two jackets. He gave her this one for the summer, and he also gave her a winter version because the plan was for her to continue to come. So again, there are people that feel that Elvis was going to make some major changes after this tour that he was about to go on. Right after that tour, they felt like he was going to make some major changes and send some people away, sever ties with some. And one of those people they feel is Ginger. And they certainly feel that he was not going to have married her by December, which is kind of what the plan was. Not exactly, but those who believe that they were going to get married kind of believe it was in December of 1977. And those who don't believe everything was probably going to end before that. But he gave her a winter jacket. So it's not clear to me whether he felt like she wasn't going to be around in the winter or not. And the winter jacket, like the summer jacket, is unworn. So it's not like he gave it to her before and she wore it earlier in the year. It's not worn. So it indicates that he planned on having her. So he definitely kept that option open. I guess might be another way to think about it. But these jackets, both of them represent love interrupted. Whatever was gonna happen, whether he was gonna terminate the relationship, whether he was gonna move forward with it, whether he was gonna try to maintain it exactly as it was, it all ended on August 16th. And these jackets are symbols of what never was. They were preparations for a future that never arrived. And so now they're both representations of suspended time. Because their usefulness never came to pass. This is a picture of one of the winter jackets. You can see that it's a more substantial material. It's a thicker red material, and it's got leather black sleeves. Still got the elasticy collar, waistband, and wristbands. And it's still got a two-tone stripe pattern going on with that, but instead of white, it's now black. So Ginger Alden's winter jacket, which again, this is not hers, but it looks like what hers would have looked like. Hers is a man's size 34. So again, she doesn't have a female jacket. He's given her a male jacket. My feeling is they probably ordered 2 or 3 sizes of male jackets of each variety in a certain quantity, and then that's what they handed out. And that quantity was probably determined by, I'm going to guess, a logistical operation handled by the colonel. But it might have been by Joe Esposito or, one of Elvis's guys directly. But somebody would have had to place these orders with these 2 different companies, and ensure that the products got shipped to them and that they got handed out in time for the first tour of that season. And this jacket also has the large Elvis in Concert patch on the left breast. It's also got the Taking Care of Business logo patch on the sleeve. And on this one, the inside label reads Tailored by Butwin, Butwin, which is a different manufacturer. But again, Ginger's name is written in ink on the label. So why is Ginger's name written in ink on the label of these 2 jackets? Well, my guess is that whoever logistically handled gathering the jackets, when they distributed them, they set 2 aside, and the sizes they thought would fit Ginger, and wrote Ginger on the labels to ensure that they had 2 jackets for Ginger, because Elvis had probably mentioned something about it, or they wanted to be sure not to forget her. And then Elvis, they would have given him to Elvis to give to Ginger. So did Elvis think about Ginger specifically and order these just for her? Or at least tell the guy that was in charge of it to make sure 2 were set aside for Ginger? I don't know. It might have been a standing order from the time of Linda Thompson, right? Like, maybe they just kept so many jackets aside for at least one girlfriend, right? So that would be an interesting thought about how logistically, as a business, did Elvis handle getting these jackets? Because I very much doubt that these were a one-off order. Like anybody called and said, hey, we need 2 more. 1 summer and 1 winter for Ginger. And again, Ginger's winter jacket is accompanied by a letter of authenticity from Ginger stating that it's hers. And it's also unworn, so it's basically like new. Now, the one that we see on screen, even though it looks really, really good, is a very, very worn. It's been worn a whole lot. And this one was owned by a special friend of Elvis, but not somebody who worked on the Elvis in Concert tour. So this is a special story. And this is about a guy named Mike Grassley. And Mike Grassley is known throughout the world of rock and roll as a roadie, but specifically for his incredible ability to rig lighting and other stuff that needs to be rigged from like the rafters and such. And when Elvis gifted this jacket to Mike, it was not in person. Mike had previously worked for Elvis at some point, and he was a famous name throughout the rock and roll world. Like, one entertainer could talk to another and mention Mike Grassley, and they both know who they're talking about, and they could have a discussion about him. That's how famous Mike was in these circles. And so Mike was working for Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And during a concert, during one of these rigging things, he fell and he hurt himself pretty badly, and he ended up in the hospital. And Elvis heard about it. So Elvis sent him this jacket. And this jacket's got the TCB patch on the arm. It's got the Elvis in concert on the front. It's got the Butwin label that says the champion of jackets on the inside collar. It's a size 46. And this was, to send Mike a message that he remembered him. Elvis remembered Mike. He appreciated what he'd done for Elvis. He was thinking about him. He wanted to extend what healing that he could to Mike, and offer him, I think, a hope for the future that no matter what Mike was thinking at that moment might happen with his career, trying to recover from this accident, that Elvis was telling him, when you go back out there to get a job, if you need to drop my name, wear the jacket and drop my name. If you can't find a job, or you want to come back, come on back. We'll work it out. I believe that's all said with this jacket that Elvis sent to Mike. He didn't give it to him personally, face to face, but he knew Mike was hurting. And he sent him something to make him part of the team. Because Elvis was going back out on tour. And he always had a team with him when he was out on tour. And Mike Grassley, other than working with Elvis Presley, he also worked with Elton John, the Moody Blues, Fleetwood Mac, the Grateful Dead, Black Sabbath, Electric Light Orchestra, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, The Cars, U2, Earth, Wind and Fire, Def Leppard, Ozzy Osbourne, and more. And Terry's saying that's another great cool jacket, owned by a really cool guy. And here we can get a close-up of the TCB. We can see that Mike has been brought under the protection of the lightning bolt. He's been marked as one of Elvis's people. And here we can see the Butwin label. The jacket for champions, tailored by Butwin, the champion of jackets. And they got a cute little guy that's, I guess, the Buttwin symbol. And you can imagine in ink written on here, Ginger. Because that's what her jacket would have had right here on this cloth label that says Buttwin. And here we see a newspaper article with a guy in an Elvis in concert winter jacket, and he's holding what looks to be a gold record, a framed gold record. And this newspaper article is from 1998. And the man in the picture is Mike Grassley. He's the one who fell. He's the one who was hurt. He's the one that Elvis sent the jacket. And the award he's holding, that's a recognition of his professional work and achievement while working on Def Leppard's 1983 Pyromania tour. And so for this article in 1998, he donned the Elvis jacket. He held his Def Leppard Pyromania Tour Award, and he got his picture taken and put into the paper with an entire article about him. And it says that he had spent 15 years being a roadie. So now I just want to do a little bit of a review of some things that we've seen in some past episodes. Things that were given to Ginger so that we can add these jackets into the archive of Ginger items that we've begun to build. Hi, Dan. Thanks for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. This is the blue scarf. The one that's like so many other scarves that Elvis handed out and that initiated Ginger into the circle of fans. And this is the shirt with the Native American symbols that represented who Elvis was. That Elvis gave to Ginger as a token that he wanted her to know him better. That they had things to learn about each other. That he wanted to share those things. And here we see the anklet that he gave her. 24 karat gold. 2 hearts, an E and a P. His initials. So that they could be with her forever. Worn in a nearly secret place. Always touching her skin. He would be with her even when he wasn't seen. And this is the silver motorcycle jacket with the rainbow flames, hand-painted, that was bought for Elvis in 1974 by his girlfriend Linda Thompson, which had a matching jacket that Linda kept and that they used to wear together when they rode the motorcycles, and that Elvis gave to Ginger to ride motorcycles with him so that he could transfer his ritual of love and try to live it again, try to find the happiness that he'd once had, because he saw in Ginger the possibility of that happening. She wasn't just another girl, she was somebody that he saw possibilities of the future. And that's why he gave her these things. And here's the belly chain that we last looked at that says, "My love, my life," which is a message that he picked out and he had custom made to give to Ginger by his good friend, personal jeweler, Lowell Hayes. And this wasn't a piece just like the anklet. He didn't just walk into a store and buy these. He didn't send one of the guys to find them at a jeweler. These are custom made pieces. He created them in his mind, and he wished them into being. And then he gave them to a woman that he loved, or a woman that he wanted to love, or a woman that he wanted to love him. We don't really know what was going on in his head at those last months. But it seems clear he was making very loud declarations to Ginger. Hi, Lorna. Thanks so much for coming. I appreciate seeing you here. And then he gave her this red jacket so that when she was on tour with him, she'd be one of the circle, one of the protected, one of his people, so that she'd be marked. People would know that she was with him. And I have a obituary left to read for today, but I think I'm going to skip it because it's kind of sad, and I don't really want to leave off on a sad note on this Saturday as we come to a conclusion on this episode. So we've got a few minutes here. If anybody would like to ask any questions or jump in and say anything, now would be a good time. I did see that Donna Presley put out a new video today, and she does mention a question, or 3 questions. I'm very greedy when I ask the questions, but she did very graciously answer 3 questions that I asked. So if you watch her newest video, you will hear her refer to Hillbilly Cat. And that's me. So I thought that was fun. And again, if you haven't watched Donna Presley or seen her channel, definitely should check it out. She has an incredible interview on those Elvis girls. I should definitely check that out too. And on today's video, she answered probably 10 or 15 questions. I mean, it was quite a few. And she's asking for people to send her more. So if you'd like to know anything she might know about Elvis, should definitely send her one. And Emma's saying that she loved the anklet and that Terry loves the jewelry too. Yeah, Elvis definitely had good taste, even in very simple jewelry. Dan saying he loves this pic with Elvis and Vernon. And at this moment, Elvis was saying to the crowd that this was Vernon's, they were reuniting on this tour because Vernon had not been able to come on tours recently because of his health conditions. And Elvis was saying how much he'd missed him. And this was right before the end for Elvis. So even in his last public statements and thoughts, you know, he was thinking about Vernon. And Anna's saying she did hear those answered questions. Thank you, Anna. I knew I wasn't crazy. And Laura's saying she saw that too. Well, and I'm glad you guys recognized who the Hillbilly Cat was. And Jen saying she answered Julie's questions from Team Elvis. So yeah, she's been very gracious with these answers. But that's really all I've got for today. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. And again, I've got episode planned for tomorrow and for every day after that. So we've got a lot more episodes to go. So I'll see you guys back here. I try to do every day at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And like I say every time before I leave, you guys keep on taking care of business.